Have you ever walked into a room, felt the eyes of strangers brush against your skin like cold fingertips, and instinctively adjusted the way you carried yourself? Maybe you smiled a little too quickly, laughed at a joke you didn't find funny, or said something polite when you desperately wanted to speak your mind. In those moments, fleeting yet unforgettable, you realize something: we are always being watched, judged, calculated. But what if I told you that most people, without even knowing it, sabotage their reputation, authority, and social leverage in public spaces? Not through grand mistakes or scandalous acts, but through small, seemingly harmless behaviors. Things you do out of habit, politeness, or insecurity. Things that ancient thinkers like Niccolò Machiavelli warned against centuries ago. In his infamous work The Prince, Machiavelli painted a ruthless portrait of human nature. He believed people are easily manipulated, guided more by appearances than by truth, and that public perception holds more power than private virtue. In his world, and perhaps in ours, it isn't enough to be good. It's vital to appear strong, composed, and untouchable. And to do that, one must avoid certain mistakes in public at all costs. But here's the unsettling truth: you're probably making those mistakes every single day. At the grocery store, at work, in restaurants, or while scrolling your phone in the park. Unaware that the people around you, whether friends, strangers, or rivals, are quietly forming judgments about your worth, your character, your place in the invisible social hierarchy. This video is not about paranoia. It's about power. Social power. The unspoken, delicate web of perceptions that shapes your relationships, opportunities, and status without you realizing it. Because as much as we like to pretend otherwise, we are not free creatures. We exist in a world of optics, of appearances, assumptions, and silent evaluations. And so today, we're going to pull back the curtain on 9 things you should never do in public, behaviors Machiavelli would have considered fatal errors. Errors that might seem trivial on the surface but carry devastating consequences beneath. We'll explore why apologizing too often can weaken your authority. Why public displays of vulnerability are a double-edged sword. Why constant self-deprecation, unsolicited advice, or emotional outbursts can slowly erode your social currency. And why, even in a world obsessed with authenticity, too much honesty in the wrong moments can destroy you. But this isn't just about old political philosophy. We'll delve into modern psychology too, into the mechanics of status, dominance, and social perception. How the human brain makes snap judgments in milliseconds, locking you into a social category long before you've spoken your first word. How certain behaviors trigger unconscious biases that either elevate you or reduce you to insignificance. We'll draw from studies in behavioral psychology, social dominance theory, and human evolutionary instinct to understand why some people command respect the moment they enter a room, while others become invisible no matter how kind, intelligent, or genuine they might be. I want you to picture this: you're at a dinner party. The conversation flows, laughter rises and falls like waves, and in one corner sits a man you've never met. He hasn't said much, but something about the way he carries himself, the careful silences, the way his gaze lingers without desperation, the occasional half-smile, makes people lean in when he finally does speak. You can't quite explain it. He breaks no rules. He's polite, but there's a quiet gravity about him. That's no accident. It's a performance. A deliberate, calculated avoidance of social missteps Machiavelli would have admired. And it's a skill you can learn. Because here's the harshest truth of all: in public, perception is reality. It doesn't matter what your intentions are. What matters is how people feel about you and how you manage the subtle currents of social interaction. And if you refuse to learn these rules, you will be ruled by them. So in this video, we'll unravel 9 Machiavellian warnings about public behavior, lessons drawn from the darkest corners of human psychology and timeless political philosophy. Lessons that, once understood, can shield you from humiliation, grant you influence, and perhaps most importantly, keep you from becoming a silent casualty of your own carelessness. Stay with me, because what you don't know is already costing you more than you realize. Before we unravel each of the 9 specific things you should never do in public, we need to understand the deeper game at play. The ancient, unspoken contest beneath every social interaction, the silent war for status, reputation, and control over perception. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this better than most. In The Prince, written in the early 16th century, he laid bare the brutal mechanics of power. He argued that humans are not as noble, rational, or moral as they like to imagine. Instead, people are driven by fear, desire, jealousy, and insecurity. And because of this, public life is not a place for sincerity but for strategy. It is not essential, Machiavelli wrote, that a prince should have all the good qualities, but it is essential that he should seem to have them. In other words, it's not who you are that matters. It's who people think you are. And while most of us will never be monarchs or generals, we all exist within social hierarchies, at work, in our friends' circles, in families, and communities. Whether you like it or not, people are constantly evaluating your value based on your actions, your words, your posture, and your demeanor in public. What's terrifying is that this evaluation happens quickly and unconsciously. Social psychologists have shown that within 7 seconds of meeting someone, we've already made assumptions about their status, trustworthiness, intelligence, and even moral character. Why? Because for thousands of years, survival depended on reading people swiftly and efficiently. Who is a threat? Who is an ally? Who commands authority? Who can be safely ignored? These snap judgments became hardwired into our nervous system. And here's where the problem lies. The modern world still operates on these primal instincts, but now the rules are more subtle, hidden beneath layers of etiquette and social norms. And when you commit one of these 9 public mistakes, you unknowingly trigger ancient instincts that either lower your status or mark you as vulnerable. To understand this better, let's explore some of the psychological mechanisms behind public perception. In every group of social animals, from wolves to humans, a dominance hierarchy emerges. There are alphas, betas, and subordinates. And while we've outgrown the visible displays of physical dominance, modern dominance is far more insidious. It's conveyed through body language, speech patterns, eye contact, and posture. Psychologist Jordan Peterson, in Maps of Meaning, discusses how our nervous system is constantly scanning for indicators of dominance or submission. A person who avoids eye contact, slouches, fidgets, or speaks in an uncertain tone signals low status, whether consciously intended or not. Machiavelli would have argued that allowing yourself to appear weak or anxious in public gives others silent permission to disregard or exploit you. This is why certain behaviors must be meticulously avoided. Another concept critical to public perception is illusory superiority, a cognitive bias where people overestimate their own abilities and social standing relative to others. In public, people assume they're being judged by the standards they set for themselves. But in truth, you're being judged by ancient, ruthless standards of strength, control, and usefulness to the group. Consider this: a man who apologizes too often in public situations thinks he's being polite, but others perceive him as lacking confidence and inviting dominance. Machiavelli warned against this, writing, "A prince ought to inspire fear in such a way that, if he does not win love, he avoids hatred, for he can endure being feared while he is not hated." Translated into modern terms, it's better to maintain respect than to overextend yourself seeking approval. Public behavior is transactional. Every word, gesture, or decision either adds to or subtracts from your social value in the eyes of others. In his book Status Anxiety, philosopher Alain de Botton explains that most human suffering comes from our obsession with how we rank in the eyes of others. Our fear of public embarrassment, rejection, or being seen as weak is not irrational, it's ancient. In tribal societies, low status meant lower access to resources, mates, and protection. In the modern world, it still translates into being overlooked for promotions, excluded from key relationships, or being treated as insignificant. That's why Machiavelli insisted on careful curation of one's public image, not because it's shallow, but because survival and influence depend on it. Modern culture often glorifies vulnerability. We're told to be open, authentic, to share our struggles. And while there's merit in authenticity, Machiavelli would have seen this as dangerous if poorly timed. Public vulnerability works only when paired with perceived strength. When overused or offered too freely, it signals fragility, inviting exploitation or pity, neither of which bolster your position in a hierarchy. This ties into the psychological concept of impression management coined by Erving Goffman. Goffman argued that life is a constant performance, and each person is an actor presenting a controlled image to the public to protect their dignity and maintain status. Machiavelli would argue, never show your hand too openly or at the wrong time. Another phenomenon influencing public perception is the halo effect, a cognitive bias where the perception of one positive trait influences the perception of unrelated traits. For example, if you project confidence in one context, people unconsciously assume you are intelligent, capable, and even morally upright. Conversely, showing insecurity in one moment can tarnish unrelated judgments about your competence. Understanding this effect is crucial. A single public mistake, an awkward laugh, an inappropriate overshare can ripple outward, reshaping how people perceive your entire character. Machiavelli knew this intuitively, which is why, for him, controlling perception was the primary weapon of influence. Though most people think of social status as a vague, fluid concept, in reality, every interaction you have contributes to your invisible social credit score. This is a mental tally people keep of your reliability, authority, charisma, and desirability as a companion, employee, or leader. And while people rarely verbalize these assessments, they use them to make critical decisions about you. Psychologists call this thin slicing, the ability to infer a person's character and worth from minimal exposure. And when you commit public missteps, your social credit silently drops. In Machiavellian terms, a man who allows himself to be publicly shamed or diminished becomes fair game for rivals and irrelevant to allies. Now that we've dissected the core psychological and philosophical theories underpinning public behavior, from dominance hierarchies to impression management, we can finally approach the 9 specific things you must never do in public. Not because they're morally wrong, not because they're embarrassing, but because they damage your reputation, authority, and the invisible power you carry in the room. They make you an easy target in a world where power belongs not to the kind, but to the calculated. In the next section, we'll explore these 9 behaviors one by one, with unsettling truths, historical examples, and practical psychological insights for each. Now that we've explored the invisible forces controlling public perception, the ancient dominance hierarchies, the illusion of control, the halo effect, and the social credit system, it's time to confront the cold, unsettling truth Machiavelli grasped centuries ago. You are not as free as you think. And the world does not forgive public mistakes. You see, we like to imagine modern society as fair and rational, that people judge us by our intentions, our integrity, or the content of our character. But Machiavelli and modern psychology would tell you otherwise. In truth, society is still tribal at its core. Your worth is measured not by your goodness, but by the power you project and the mistakes you avoid. And it gets worse. Most of what we consider harmless social habits are, in fact, subtle signals of weakness. Things you do casually, apologizing unnecessarily, revealing your insecurities, seeking approval, over-explaining yourself, are not neutral behaviors. They're cues that trigger ancient instincts in others, lowering your perceived value without you realizing it. Today, we live under the illusion of civility. But beneath the surface, human interaction is a performance of dominance and submission, a continuous contest of reputation, control, and social leverage. It's time to expose the behaviors Machiavelli would have condemned as fatal public errors, actions that drain your authority and silently reshape how others see you. Let's confront them one by one. At first glance, saying sorry seems harmless, even polite. But in public, excessive apologies are the equivalent of publicly lowering your head in submission. A study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that people who apologize unnecessarily are perceived as lacking confidence and authority. It makes others instinctively categorize you as a subordinate. Machiavelli's principle: it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. In a world where perception is power, over-apologizing signals self-doubt. It makes people question your decisions, your competence, and your ability to lead. You've seen it. Someone makes a joke at their own expense in a meeting or a social setting, hoping it'll make them more relatable or likable. And sometimes it works, but more often it backfires. Self-deprecation, especially in front of strangers or rivals, is a subtle admission of inferiority. It gives others silent permission to see you as less capable. Machiavelli would have viewed this as self-sabotage. In The Prince, he wrote about the importance of maintaining dignity and distance to preserve authority. In modern psychology, this relates to impression management theory. While humility is valued, displaying weakness before you've established strength can be fatal to your reputation. Modern society romanticizes emotional authenticity, but Machiavelli warned against public displays of raw emotion, especially anger, fear, or desperation. Why? Because emotion signals vulnerability. And in the eyes of both allies and enemies, it marks you as unstable, unpredictable, and easy to provoke. A famous study in organizational behavior and human decision processes revealed that visibly angry leaders are perceived as less competent and trustworthy. Calm, composed individuals maintain authority and are sought for guidance in crises. Machiavelli's strategy: control your emotions in public. Show strength through restraint. Vulnerability, if displayed, should be calculated, not spontaneous. You might think that participating in every conversation or filling silences makes you more noticeable. In fact, it often does the opposite. Machiavelli argued that leaders should speak rarely but with consequence. Words carry weight when they're scarce and measured. Modern studies in conversational dominance found that those who talk less but deliver valuable, precise comments are perceived as more intelligent and authoritative. Overtalking, on the other hand, diminishes your influence and invites scrutiny. The principle is simple: when you speak without adding value, you dilute your presence. We've all witnessed it, someone desperately fishing for compliments, validation, or social acceptance in a group setting. Machiavelli would see this as a critical mistake. Seeking approval in public marks you as insecure and dependent. And in a dominance hierarchy, dependency is weakness. Psychological research calls this social proof dependence, a phenomenon where people excessively seek validation, assuming it will grant them higher status. It doesn't. It broadcasts neediness. Machiavelli's advice: command respect by acting as though you neither crave nor require it. There's a time and place for vulnerability, but public settings are not it. In The Prince, Machiavelli warned rulers against showing wounds and doubts before their subjects. Why? Because public vulnerability invites opportunists. It signals a crack in your armor. Modern studies in self-disclosure theory confirm this. Oversharing in group settings decreases perceived professionalism and competence. It can make you the subject of gossip or exploitation. Machiavelli's wisdom: reserve your confessions for those who have earned your trust. Nothing lowers your status in public faster than defensiveness. When criticized, insecure people instinctively defend themselves, offering excuses, clarifications, or counterattacks. But Machiavelli knew that this reaction signals insecurity and places you at the mercy of others' opinions. Modern psychology labels this the backfire effect. Defending yourself often reinforces the negative perception. The Machiavellian strategy? Endure criticism with composure. Counter through actions, not explanations. Predictability, while comfortable, is a liability in public power dynamics. Machiavelli argued that unpredictability, when controlled, is a tool for maintaining dominance. When people can anticipate your every move or response, you become easy to manipulate or ignore. In modern terms, this is about managing your behavioral patterns. Break expectations occasionally. Stay tactically enigmatic. A study in behavioral economics confirms this. People who occasionally defy expectations are perceived as more intriguing and authoritative. Perhaps the most socially corrosive habit is complaining in public. Machiavelli would consider this an act of self-sabotage. Complaining signals powerlessness, entitlement, and discontent, qualities that diminish your influence. Modern studies in effective forecasting show that public complainers are seen as less competent, less emotionally intelligent, and less reliable. Machiavelli's principle: if you must express dissatisfaction, do so privately, strategically, and with a proposed solution, never as a public display of weakness. These are the 9 fatal behaviors Machiavelli would have condemned in public. And now you see why. Not because they're impolite or embarrassing, but because they carry invisible consequences, slowly draining your social power, warping perceptions of your value, and marking you as expendable in the silent, relentless war of public reputation. And the most unsettling truth? You've likely committed several of these today. Most people do, because we're taught to be polite, to fit in, to be liked. But as Machiavelli warned, the world belongs to those who appear strong, controlled, and beyond reproach. In the next section, we'll deliver the climax, the single, chilling revelation that will challenge everything you've assumed about social behavior and personal freedom. And now, we arrive at the moment you were never meant to see. The revelation that turns the entire game upside down. You've likely spent your life believing that sincerity, kindness, and emotional openness are what win people's respect. That by being agreeable, humble, and modest in public, you'll naturally attract goodwill, affection, and trust. But Machiavelli would scoff at this belief. And the most unsettling thing is, modern psychology now agrees with him. The brutal truth is this: the public arena was never built for sincerity. It was built for performance. We are not judged by who we are. We are judged by how we manage perception. And here's the revelation. Every social setting you walk into is a battlefield disguised as a gathering. In that coffee shop, at that office meeting, on your social media feed, everyone is silently evaluating everyone else. Who holds influence? Who commands space? Who bends? Who breaks? And the most dangerous behaviors aren't grand betrayals or outrageous mistakes. They're these subtle, daily public errors we've just explored. Each one chips away at your perceived value. Each one alters the silent social contract in ways you can't see. Here's the Machiavellian paradox. The more you try to be liked, the less respect you command. The more you seek approval, the easier you are to dismiss. The more you expose your weaknesses, the more disposable you become. What Machiavelli knew, and what modern research confirms, is that social power is not given to the kindest, the smartest, or the most deserving. It's given to those who control their narrative. And the people who do this best, they follow one chilling rule: appear to be what is useful, not what is true. It's not about deception. It's about discipline. It's about understanding that your public face is a tool, one you must sharpen, polish, and defend. Because while you may wish to live in a world of honesty and fairness, you exist in a world of optics and consequence. And every casual apology, public outburst, or insecure gesture you make doesn't just reveal who you are. It dictates how the world is allowed to treat you. That's the law. Ancient, inescapable, unwritten, but obeyed. And now that you've seen it, you can never unsee it. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? In our final chapter, we'll extract practical strategies from Machiavelli's warnings and psychological insights to help you navigate public life with precision, confidence, and invisible authority. And now you see the landscape for what it truly is. The next time you walk into a room, step into a conversation, or scroll through your social feed, remember this: you are not in neutral territory. You are on a stage. Whether you realize it or not, every word you choose, every movement you make, every silence you hold is being weighed, measured, and filed away by those around you. Public life is not a place for aimless gestures. It's a performance, and most people perform carelessly. But here's the beauty in this grim truth. Once you learn the rules, you no longer have to be a pawn. No, you don't need to become a cold, ruthless manipulator. You don't need to mimic the heartless pragmatism of a medieval prince. What you need is awareness, discipline, the ability to decide, in every public moment, whether your actions serve you or betray you. Begin by watching your apologies. Not all apologies are created equal. Some heal wounds, others expose weakness. When you apologize out of habit, for minor inconveniences, for existing too loudly or taking up space, you slowly train the world to treat you as lesser. Hold your apologies in reserve. Use them with weight only when harm has been done, when dignity has been bruised, and your remorse serves a greater purpose. Anything else is a silent act of submission. Leave behind the habit of self-deprecation in public. What feels like humility is often received as insecurity. Until you have proven your strength, your value, and your authority, do not laugh at yourself in front of strangers. The world is not kind enough to always see humor for what it is. Often it smells blood. Emotional discipline is the quiet mark of a powerful person. You don't need to become a stone, but learn to choose your moments. When others rage, panic, or crumble, you hold yourself steady. Not because you lack feeling, but because you understand that public emotion, uncontrolled, signals instability. The one who masters restraint is the one others will look to when things fall apart. Speak less, but when you speak, mean it. There's an ancient gravity in words chosen carefully, spoken slowly, delivered without need for validation. Learn to sit with silence, to let others reveal their insecurities while you measure your next move. The one who talks endlessly loses the value of his voice. The one who speaks with precision makes every word a command. Stop seeking public approval. It is a trap dressed as a virtue. The moment you begin performing for applause, you surrender your authority. Move through public life as though praise is irrelevant, as though validation is something you already carry within you. Paradoxically, this very indifference draws respect. Keep your wounds private, not because you must hide who you are, but because public confession is a currency best spent in trusted company. The world may pretend to admire vulnerability, but often it records your pain and uses it against you when you least expect it. Share your struggles with those who've earned your trust. In public, wear resilience. Vulnerability without proven strength makes you prey. Vulnerability with power makes you mythic. Learn to accept criticism in silence. The instinct to defend yourself, to explain, to fight every slight is the instinct of the insecure. The powerful absorb critique like stone absorbs wind, unmoved, unbothered, quietly calculating. When you refuse to flinch, when you meet provocation with calm, you unsettle your opponents and command those watching. Understand this now, unpredictability is not recklessness. It is a weapon. If people can guess your reactions, your words, your moves, they can control you. Become tactically unpredictable. Occasionally defy expectations. Show that your actions are yours alone. That no one, no matter how close, can fully claim to understand you. This breeds intrigue, respect, and a quiet wariness that keeps potential enemies at bay. And whatever you do, stop complaining in public. There is no faster way to drain your value than to broadcast your dissatisfaction to a crowd. Complaining signals helplessness, entitlement, and emotional instability. If you must express discontent, do it privately, strategically, and with the authority of one offering solutions, not the desperation of one begging for sympathy. This is not about becoming heartless. It's about reclaiming control. About moving through a world designed to strip you of quiet dignity and teaching it, through your bearing, your silence, your precision, that you are not to be toyed with. And so I'll leave you with this. The next time you enter a room, ask yourself not what you want from the people in it, but what image you'll leave behind when you go. The man or woman who understands this, who learns to control perception rather than chase approval, who masters silence over noise, discipline over impulse, that person will carry invisible power. Because while most people walk through life hoping to be seen, the wise few learn to decide how they will be seen. Now tell me, what mistakes have you made in public that you only realize now? Which of these silent habits has been costing you without your knowledge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this truth struck a chord with you, don't leave quietly. Like the video, share it, and subscribe for more insights into the invisible games you're already playing. You've seen the rules now. Play like you were meant to win.